It's time to preview championship weekend, starting with Oregon versus Washington. We have the prospects that you need to know when you're watching the game this Friday. That and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout and senior draft analyst. And guys, I got to kick this thing over to my partner in crime, my brother, Mr. LSU himself, 2019 national champion with them LSU Bengal Tigers, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at DTalentCode. Keep talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ with those LSU Tigers, and what the other side of this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Man, we talk everything college football, we talk everything NFL football, and what we like to say over here that it all starts with the NFL Draft. DP, we talking conference champions, but you know what it starts with? Draft prospects, right? And the reason I say that is DP, right? Time at LSU, 15 draft picks, right? Consider, hey, they're one of the best teams ever. Alabama, right? Time and time again, these top tier college programs is because they have NFL draft prospects. So if you are tapped in right now, you are tapped into the right place, man. But before we get this started, DP, and we talk about this Pac-12 championship game, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Keith, Washington versus Oregon. This is a rematch from a game middle of the season where the score was 36-33 in favor of the Huskies. They were at home. This game is on the road. When you think about the prospects for Washington, it starts at the top with the quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. And Keith, this is a guy that, in my honest opinion, has a lot riding on the line in this game. Now, most people say, well, of course, the Heisman, right? But Keith, he has a lot more than that riding on the game, in my opinion, right? Because after that game, after the Oregon game, he had a bad game against Arizona State. He had a kind of a bounce back performance against Stanford. He was solid against USC. He played well against Utah for the most part. He was okay against Oregon State, right? And then he had another kind of down performance versus Washington State. We need to see that Oregon performance again. You're talking about 302 passing yards, 4 total touchdowns, over 8 yards per attempt. He is one of the better passers in this draft. You talk about keeping the pocket clean. Michael Penix from a clean pocket can really work all areas of the defense, right? The short, the intermediate, the deep game. He's a natural passer. The thing that I want to see is how does he truly handle the pressure? Because when Michael Penix is moved off his spot, even though he's a good athlete, Keith, when he's moved off his spot and forced to throw on the move and on the run, the accuracy, the ball placement, and even the arm talent, all of it kind of dips a little bit, where it's not as strong or as high as we see when he's in the pocket, working from a clean area, being able to move and slide up. So it starts with him for Washington, but of course, and then it goes to this receivers. He's got 3 receivers, Keith. And the funny thing about it, they beat Oregon the first game without Jalen McMillan. Jalen McMillan didn't play in that game. They had Jalen Polk and Rome Odunze. Now all 3 of these guys are healthy. I expect Michael Penix to be able to put on a show. He did that in the first game without his all 3 wide receivers. Now he's got all 3 of them back.
Yeah, and DP, I'm gonna pick up there with Michael Penix, and part of that is due to the ACL injuries, right? And because you said he has a lot to on the line, right? First of all, it's the Heisman, right? You can win the Heisman, you can win this game, you're going to the playoffs, right? Have a chance at winning a national championship. But then you're talking about your personal achievements, and Michael Penix is, hey, like you're gonna have to overcome those ACL injuries through the thoughts of the general managers, right? And how do you overcome that? By saying I'm a flat out winner, right? And you look at this matchup with Oregon, DP, the first time He lit them up, right? And it's involving these three wide receivers, like you talked about, Jalen Pope, Jalen McMillan, and then Roma Dunze. So this passing game, Michael Penix is going to have to lean into that. He's going to have, can I say it? Because the Heisman race, there is momentum for Jaden Daniels. There's momentum for Bo Nix, right? But it's not over. So can I say that he kind of has to have another Heisman moment again, right? Where he's going to have to throw for probably 300, 350 yards, upwards of 400 yards, because you're expecting this to be another shootout. But DP, if it doesn't turn into a shootout and it's a balanced approach, right? And we can say that with team football, it's like, okay, the goal is to win the game. I want to look at Washington's running back, right? Like they just Dylan Johnson, right? A guy that has flash to be able to take over games, right? And this is another guy that you can insert into this running back conversation from a big draft perspective, right? Of where does he slot with that? But there's another guy that if Oregon does not step up, he can fully take over.
No, 100%. And I think that's what they need to. They're going to need that, right? To give it balance. Because I think in that game, Keith, against Oregon the first time, yeah, it was 20. Michael Penix was 22 of 37. That's not horrible, right? I don't want to see 47. I don't want to see 57 attempts. Right. Let's keep it under 40 and then run the football, and that's going to be big. But again, when you look at, for me, I jump to the offensive line. When you talk about, Dylan Johnson, Troy Fautanu, the left tackle.
Really good player. People need to tap into him, man. I like him. In DP, we talked about it before, but it reminded me of even last year with Henry Bain-Valu. And I don't even know if Henry Bain-Valu got drafted, but he was another guy that I felt like checked all the boxes from a height, weight, movement skills perspective. But now I'm right there with you on Fantanatu.
I think it's Fautanu. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's We're getting together, guys. We got to get these names before the draft season straight. Get going. But I mean, he's given up only 2 sacks in the season. 17 total pressures, 13 hurries, only 2 QB hits. Playing at left tackle, 6'4", 320 pounds, but he's quick-footed. He's agile. You're talking about the ability to mirror and match rushers. He can quick and short set you. He can 45-degree angle vertical set you. He can do a lot of those different things, but he's also, and I remember someone on Twitter said his arm length has measured in around 34. That's going to be big for him from the NFL draft standpoint, because if he's over 33s, teams, now granted, it could be different if it's a team that, okay, I got 2 bookend tackles, and I think this guy can play dominant at guard, then yeah, you know what I'm saying? We've seen teams do that before. Whereas like they take a tackle who has that guard versatility, and I got 2 good tackles. I need a guard. Let me put this stud at guard, and then their offensive line takes off. That could be a potential thing for him. But for teams that need a tackle, right? And if you don't feel like taking one in the first round, second round, Troy Fautanu would definitely be somebody you want to go ahead and put on your radar, because his hand strength, his latch and grip strength is good. He can torque guys. He can run guys off the ball. I love the ability. One thing I listening to offensive line coaches, they talk about when you engage in the run game, offensive linemen, run your feet. Get this guy off the ball, and Troy can do that. But he also has that athleticism, Keith. Get out the blocks quickly to protect the outside arc and the outside shoulder, man, so the guys don't really run around him, bend around the corner, and get right to the quarterback. He does a good job protecting that as well.
Yeah, so DP, real quick, man, before we have the transition, we're talking about Washington from the defense side of football, right? Because somebody's going to have to stop Oregon. I'm going to list out these 3 names, and you tell me which ones of these 3 names that you're looking out for, right? And I'm going to look at cornerback Jabbar Muhammad, who's really picking up a lot of steam, just as far as making plays, right, but also as a draft prospect. And then you have the 2 edge rushers, right? Zion Tupelo-Fatui, and then you also have Bralen Trice. So out of those 3 guys, DP, somebody has to step up and consistently be that playmaker. Out of those 2 guys, what guy are you looking for to make that play?
All 3. All 3 of them. Like all 3. Those 2 edge rushers have to get in the backfield. But I'm going to tell you something, man. This this Oregon offense, which you're going to talk about in a minute, it rolls through Troy Franklin, okay? Jabbar Muhammad versus Troy Franklin in the first game, 4 targets, 2 receptions, 33 yards, and he allowed he allowed a first down, not a touchdown, right? He had a PBU against Troy as well. He covered Troy the best out of all the Washington DBs. I need Washington to put him on an island. Follow Troy. That's where the money is, right? So I think if anybody's going to have the most impact, because if he can take away Troy and limit Troy, that's going to force Bo Nix to hold the ball and then let those 2 edge rushers that you name pin their ears back and get after the quarterback.
Well, DP, that wraps up it for Washington, right? That's Washington side that we talked about their offense, their defense, but we still have the Oregon Ducks, man, who their only loss was to Washington. So they're going to come in here. They're going to play inspired football. They know that the college football playoff is on the line. Pac-12 championship is on the line. So we're going to get into Oregon's prospects to watch coming up next.
Why root for your favorite team on an empty stomach? Don't do it. Order on DoorDash and save on football watch party favorites. Guys, when I'm finished eating my pizza and my wings, my soda, my chips and dip and everything on game day, I love dessert, especially some cheesecake. I live in the Greenville County area of South Carolina. And with DoorDash, I can order from our favorite cheesecake place, the Cheesecake Factory. It's in the name. I can order, have it delivered right to my front door, and they have an assortment of flavors that you can indulge in yourself, just like me and my family, me and my wife. We love it. Reese's, right? Red Velvet, chocolate. They have an assortment, a variety of flavors. So again, after you've eaten your watch party favorites or the things that you're tailgating, you get home and you didn't have a chance to stop. Traffic's too busy and you can't get there. You can order in on DoorDash. Guys, all you need to do is get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCKED23. Today's episode of Locked On NFL Draft has been brought to you by PrizePicks. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. With basketball season here, guys, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes two or more players from different sports and or leagues. Example, LeBron James plus George Kittle at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions. Do you want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each and every week. This week on PrizePicks, I'm taking this Sunday Baker Mayfield versus the Carolina Panthers for over 240.5 passing yards. Guys, all you need to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Like Washington, Keith, you talk draft prospects for the Oregon Ducks. It starts at the top. Bo Nix, right?
The quarterback,
the son of a coach, right? Like he's the son of a coach. His dad played at Auburn and everything. When you think about Bo Nix from an NFL draft standpoint, Keith, what can this game do for him?
It can do a whole lot, DP, because I simply think this, that and it's not the West Coast bias, but it's just the structure of the time zones, right? I think people know of Bo Nix, right, and seen a couple highlights on SportsCenter, but people haven't really watched Bo Nix. So you get this Pac-12 championship game. There are not a lot of other games on. People are going to be tuned in. This is the most eyes you're probably going to have on you that you've had the entire year, probably since the last time you played Washington, right? And this game is probably going to be viewed more than that. So for Bo Nix, DP is making throws at all three levels, because there's starting to be a conversation that Bo Nix is kind of like a check down Charlie, right? Throw the quick screen, and maybe just because I'm in LSU country and people are trying to make a case for Jaden Daniels, but that's the stuff that I see, right? If Bo Nix doesn't throw the ball down the field, well, guess what? Throw the ball down the field, right? And you like we talked about Washington's weapons. Oregon has weapons, man. When you look at Troy Franklin, right, the projected first-round wide receiver, Garrett Bryant, Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden at wide receiver. Then they even having a freshman, Jerrion Dickey, right? But then you go to the running back, Bucky Irving, and it's like, okay, well, you said weapons and talking about Bo Nix on football, you're talking about the running back. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, right? This is a guy that can make plays in space. So that's yet another weapon to get the football to. When you think about those Texas routes, those angle routes, right? And that's simply chain movers. So for Bo Nix, DP, I think he has a lot to gain, because not that many people, as much as they know the name, they don't know his game, right? Ooh, that was bars right there, DP.
I like that.
Bars right there.
I like that.
Bars. But yeah, that's why I think Bo Nix has a lot to gain, because they know of him, but they don't know exactly what he does as far as a quarterback. And if he shows that I can make layered throws to all three levels of the football field, then guess what? This guy is consistently going to move up draft boards, because he's going to check the arm talent box, right? He's going to check the background box. And then when we look at the physical tools and him being a mobile quarterback, he's going to check that box also, and he's going to have 2 years of high-level production.
No, 100%. And even going back to that matchup against Oregon the first time, against Washington the first time, he on passes traveling 20 plus yards down the field, he was 3 for 3, 100% completion, 104 yards, 35 yards per attempt, and a touchdown, right? 2 huge throws out of the 3. So he was able to get the ball down the field. Of course, Troy Franklin's a big part of that, right? This offensive scheme. And I think that's the thing with me. He has the arm talent, he has the mobility, right? And he is comfortable being a check down Charlie and taking what the defense gives him. And then when you give him those opportunities to go one-on-one and attack down the field, he has the arm talent to do so. I think the big thing for me is, can he make those tight throws and pressure moments against tight man-to-man coverage? We talked about Jabbar Muhammad in the first segment for Washington against Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin is at 6'3", 185, 187 pounds. I'm going to tell you my NFL comp for him, Keith, or my comp. He's Jalen Hyatt with routes and a release package, because Jalen Hyatt, if he had that, he would have been a first-round pick, because that speed is outrageous, right? You got to really be aware of it and be on top of your game. You can't slow pedal or none of that stuff with Troy Franklin or Jalen Hyatt. So I think that's going to be the thing for Bo Nix is, can he, if they do limit and they take away that first read of Troy Franklin, they limit Troy Franklin, if they could be physical with Troy Franklin, can he get the ball to the rest of his weapons, right? Can he get the ball to those other guys, right? I think it's like Tez Johnson, who's another explosive, shifty receiver that they have. Can he get the ball to those guys, Keith? If he's able to do that, right? If he's able to do it, because Tez Johnson's 5'10", 160, a burner. He's like that traditional Oregon wide receiver, right? That we've seen for over a decade. They bring those high octane athletes that terrify you in space, because if you get one-on-one, it's hard to tackle those guys. So I think about it from that standpoint.
Yeah, I want to talk about Bucky Irving, DP, and I'm gonna pass the rock right back to you. But I want you to kind of dive into who Bucky Irving is as a prospect, as a draft prospect, as a playmaker, because not many people know about him, right? Running plays, running back. He has an intriguing name, Bucky Irving, right? But not many people know his game, DP. So who is Bucky Irving as a prospect and as a playmaker in this Oregon offense?
Bucky Irving is, for me, this year's Tajay Spears, in terms of that guy that has a big enough frame. He runs hard. He's dynamic and explosive. He's shifty, right? Great footwork. Like we always talk about when you're running downhill, right? And as a running back, do you have the footwork to exchange gaps? Can you jump, cut, and find alternate lanes if the A gap is closed and you're supposed to hit the A gap? Can you jump cut to the opposite B gap? Can you jump cut to the play side B gap or C gap? Can you jump outside? He can do those things, and he's physical. He finishes runs, even though he's not, just like Tajay Spears, they're not the biggest of frames. They're not 220 pounds, but those guys typically run hard enough to where they fall forward. But then the pass, like you talked about, the pass catching ability, where you can feature him in the passing game and get the ball to him in space and allow him to talk about the Texas route, those angle routes, just the flat routes, get him out, the wheel routes. He tracks the ball well enough. You get him out there against some of these linebackers, man, that's a mismatch. And that makes, Bo Nix's job easy. So to me, Bucky Irving is one of the better backs in the country. And I think he's going to be able to solidify himself, because if I remember correctly, he's had a great season. He's had a really good season when they feed him the football. But even in this game, Keith, week 7, Bucky Irving, 22 carries, 127 yards, 6 yards per, and a rushing touchdown. He forced 7 missed tackles, and they run gap and zone with him. He's a scheme versatile kid. This young man can ball, man, and I think teams are he's a tone setter for this offense. When they run the ball and they get the run game going, that makes Bo Nix's life a lot easier, because then you get the RPO, you get the play action, you get to force those linebackers to fall step upfield, and you can hit the slants, the digs, the crossers right behind them. You know what I mean? The deep overs and benders. Bucky Irving is the X factor for this offense.
Okay, with that, and we're gonna finish this segment up the way we finished last segment up, right? I'm gonna name off some defensive names, and you're gonna tell me which guys you expect to make plays or what guys need to make plays. I'm gonna name off defensive end Brandon Dorlus. I'm gonna name off that kind of jack defensive end Jordan Birch. I'm gonna name off linebacker Jeffrey Bossa. Then I'm gonna go with linebacker Jamal Hill, and then we're gonna finish up with 2 cornerbacks, Dante Manning and Tasheem Johnson. DP. Of those guys, man, who needs to step up and have big time plays for this Oregon defense?
two guys, Brandon Dorlus and Birch. The guys on the
Mhm.
front line for this, going up against a high octane passing offense that is now going to walk into this rematch with their third wide receiver healthy, not got all of their horses running at full speed. Yeah, you need to get after Michael Penix. And as we talked about in the first segment with Michael Penix, move him off the spot. Move him off the spot. And you can't do that without a pass rush. Brandon
So
Dorlus can move inside and out, Keith. And I think he's going to be he's the X factor for their defense.
yeah, and I think honestly, those two guys, Brandon Dorlus, Jordan Birch, I think those are the potentially the two most important players outside of the quarterbacks because, like you said, if Michael Penix is sitting in the pocket and he's dialed in and he has time, good luck, right? He can throw some absolute dimes. He can hit every throw on the college football field, the NFL football field, the high school field, the rugby field, the soccer field. It don't matter. He can make all the throws, DP. So I agree with you, and that's why I think that those two guys getting pressure on Michael Penix, right, making him move off the spot, have to set his feet, accelerating his clock, making him anticipate things a little bit more. I believe that's the only thing that's really going to stop this offense because the Washington skill players. I mean, they can ball, man. Jalen Pope is probably going to be at least a fourth rounder, right? Jalen McMillan has the potential to elevate his draft stock to a second, third rounder. Rome Odunze is showing that he's a first round guy. Like they just have the offensive weapons. So it's like you probably can't stop that, right? Like so, the only way you could stop them is through the offensive line collapsing the pocket and with their edge rushers. So
100%. You got to move Michael Penix. You got to get in the backfield because if you don't, like you said, good luck. You saw what he did the first time. Now he's got Jalen McMillan back. He might throw for 400 if you don't get back there.
Yep, it would definitely happen with DP coming up next, man. Our favorite part of the show, man. We're going to go through these game picks. We're going to let you know who we think is going to win the game. We went through the draft prospects. We went through some of the breakdown. We went through some of the matchups. Now we're going to pick the game that we want to win. But DP, I'm going to have a little twist on this.
When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. Guys, LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It's simple and it's easy. LinkedIn isn't just another job board, guys. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality and qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Such a quick turnaround that you got to be happy about. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire with so much ease. So what do you need to do? Understand that post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
DP, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna knock this out like this, man. I think this is fun because these are two teams that they're almost identical, right? As far as what, like, the offenses and defenses, how they structured. So I'm gonna throw out the positions and we're gonna compare these positions real quick and have some fun like that. So I'm gonna ask you basically a this or that, right? So you rolling Michael Penix or Bo Nix?
Michael Penix.
Okay, I'm gonna go Michael Penix on that too. Now let's go to the running backs, DP, because they both have two versatile running backs that can make plays in the passing game and the run game. You're gonna go Bucky Irving for Oregon, or you're going Dylan Johnson for Washington?
Bucky Irving.
Bucky Irving. Okay, I'm with you on that because I think Bucky Irving is just a little bit more explosive. Now, this wide receiver core, DP, the wide receiver core, Washington, right? You have Jalen Pope, you have McMillan, you have Rome Odunze. On Oregon side, you have Garrett Bryant, you have Troy Franklin, you have Tej Johnson, Trayshawn Holden. What receiver core are you rolling with?
Washington. I'm going with them Huskies on this one as well.
I'm gonna roll with Washington too, man. I think their top end is just a little bit better. And then we're gonna finish this thing off with the defense. DP, what defense you going with? Because it seems like we're not 100% confident in any defense, man. What defense you going with?
I'm gonna go with Oregon's defense. I think Oregon's defense is a little bit better.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Washington defense. I'm gonna go with Washington defense. I'm a believer in Bralen Trice and ZTF being able to make some plays, and especially with the cornerback Jabbar Muhammad. Now I wanted to get that out the way because it seems like it's kind of split, right? And like we said, these are very identical teams. So I wanted to kind of just compare and contrast and let the listeners know, our everydayers know where we kind of stand with certain position groups and who has the advantages. But we about to flip this thing over. DP, flat out, who's going to win the game?
Neutral field. I'm going Washington. I'm going with Washington because I think with Washington, they understand this is it. If you win this game, you are the undefeated Pac-12 champions. And you have to make that statement known to the playoff committee. I don't care what happens with Alabama and Georgia. I don't care what happens anywhere else. We took care of business, right? Mm-hmm. We have multiple top 10 victories against top 10 teams. We're in the playoffs. And I think that Michael Penix and Roma Dunze and this wide receiver core, this team is going to play inspired to not lose this game so that somebody from the Pac-12 has a for sure shot. Because even if Oregon wins, there's still a case that you don't put them in over a Georgia if Bama beats Georgia on Saturday. Mm-hmm. So, and Michigan wins, and Texas, what Florida State whoops Louisville, whatever. Like, it's too much mess if Oregon wins for the Pac-12, and I think Washington understands we need a Pac-12 team in the college football playoffs. So I'm gonna go with Washington. I think that they're gonna put all the chips on the table and they're gonna ball out.
Hey, well, I'm looking at this, DP. I'm gonna go with Washington also. I know people thinking that Oregon's gonna win the rematch, but I think Washington,
Vegas is favoring them, right? Like they're like a 9.5 point favorite.
Right, when we checked it was like 10 points. Like, that is crazy. That is insane to think that I don't know, maybe it does happen, a couple turnovers, whatever, but to think that the team won earlier in the year and then now you think they're gonna lose
without one of their star receivers, they beat them by 3.
That's definitely crazy. But no, I'm gonna go with Washington. I think Washington's gonna get the job done. I think because we talked about it at the top of the show, right? You talked about Michael Penix and kind of how this offense kind of sputtered. I think to use lack of a better term, right, they almost like unloaded the clip, right, when they played Oregon. Yep. You know what I'm saying? And then I think after that was kind of like their championship game, their highlight game. And then I think after that, DP, they kind of just sputtered along, right? Like just
that phrase of emotional wins, Keith, like when you in the middle of the season, you beat a team that you have to beat. And then after that, they were spent for a couple weeks.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you on that. But I think they're gonna be up for this one. Like you said, they know everything's on the table, man. We win this game. We 2 games away from being national champs, being the best college football team in America, right? So they're right there, and it's for the taking. And guess what? If there's any time for a team, and I'm gonna sound biased, but understand what I'm saying, like outside of a traditional power, outside of an Alabama or Georgia, is this year, because those teams don't look as loaded talent-wise as they did in years past. You know what I'm saying? Like the couple years, the past 10, 15 years, like we knew that if it was a Ohio State team, an Alabama team, a Georgia team, those teams were loaded beyond measure, right? Like it was like, okay, we can't, like, they're the best team in college football. I think if you ask 10 people who's the best team in college football, you could potentially get 10 different answers. So if you Washington, you understand that, hey, everything is right there for the taking. So we'll see how that thing goes. But DP, what we do know is that Locked On NFL Draft is the best draft podcast there is out there, man. I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Remember to like. Remember, if you're not subscribed, to subscribe. And remember to comment. Let us know. Let us know who you think is going to win the game. We could both be wrong. We think Oregon is going to win by 17 points. Who knows, man? Let us know whether you agree with us or disagree with us. But, man, you can find me, Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. You can find DP Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we always say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Listen, guys, it's very simple. Very simple. Listen, go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you so much for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Listen, we're getting into Texas. We're getting into Big 12 Championship, SEC Championship on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.